Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how I can create this animation in Blender. So let's get started. First let's delete the light and now scale the cube like this, and now scale it on the X like this. Let's hide the camera for now and go into wireframe view, add a torus, and under add torus set the minor radius to 0.05. Now rotate it by 90 on the Y. And by the way, make sure that it is not visible in the final render. You can find this option up here. Now let's go to the physics properties, fluid, and select flow. On the flow type, set it to fire and smoke, and set the flow behavior to inflow. Now let's set the fuel to 0 and keyframe it. Go to frame 200, and by the way make the end 500, and set the fuel to 1 and keyframe it again. Now press I and keyframe the scale. Go back to frame 1 and scale it down to 0 and keyframe it again. Now we have this animation here. Now we are going to need a vortex force field. Rotate it on the Y by 90 again. Set the strength to 2.5 and set the minor distance, the max distance, to 1.2. Select the cube and go to fluid and set the type to domain. Set the resolution divisions to somewhere between 200 and 300. I'm going to set it to 300. Of course, the higher the divisions are, the better the quality of the simulation will be, but also the longer it will take to bake. Now let's check adaptive domain, dissolve, and noise. Set the type to either modular. If you set it to modular, you need to first bake the data, and then you need to bake the noise. And if you set it to all, you can just bake everything at once. So let's check is resumable. Now let's press Ctrl S to save before we bake. I'm going to call it tutorial. And one more thing before we bake, we need to set it to 500. And now let's press bake all. Now that it's done baking, let's set up the camera real quick. So bring back the camera and press Ctrl Alt 0 to go into camera view. And now let's select the camera, press G Z like this. And let's scroll through the timeline. I think I'm going to position it around here. Or maybe on the other side. Like this. Now let's press I to keyframe the rotation, and now let's drag this up, change it to the graph editor, click on this drop down here, select the X rotation and press N. Now let's go to modifiers and noise modifier, but as you can see that's too strong now, so let's set the strength to 0.01 and copy the modifier. Now paste it here and change the offset and do the same for the Z. I'm also going to change the scale to 10 for all of them. And I don't want the flames to go beyond the frame of the camera, so let's move it back a little by pressing G, Z, Z. I think something like this looks good. Now let's select the domain and go to shading. Go to rendered view and make the world black. Delete the principled BSDF and add a principled volume. Connect the volume to the volume and set the density to 0. Now add two math nodes, set them to multiply, set the bottom value to 150, and connect the value to the emission strength. Now duplicate it and connect the value to the value. Now we need 3 color ramps. Duplicate it. And now add an attribute node. Connect the factor to the factor of the bottom 2 color ramps. And tab in heat. Connect the color of the bottom color ramp to the emission color and the color of this color ramp to the top of the multiply node, and then the color of this one to the bottom. Now let's add a noise texture. This one. Connect the factor to the factor, set the scale to 8 and the detail to 9.2. Now drag the black in like this and make the white here black. Drag the black in and now click on the plus. Also drag this in a little more and make this one in the middle white. Now let's go down here, set this to HSL and counterclockwise, and set the black to blue and the white to red. Now drag the blue in and press plus, and I think I'm going to set this to something blue, like this. You can of course add as many controllers here as you like, but I'm going to leave it at that. Now let's save again and go to the render properties. I'm going to render at 128 samples with denoise enabled. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can use optics or OpenImage denoise. If you don't, then you can only use OpenImage denoise, but I prefer optics. Now for the compositing, you need to enable use nodes, and if you want these outputs here, you need to check denoising data. Then just add a denoise node set to accurate. Now for the output properties, I'm going to leave everything here as it is, and let's select an output folder. I already created one for that. I'm going to call the images rendered images. If you put an underscore after the name, Blender is going to automatically assign numbers to the frames. So let's hit accept. You can either use PNG or JPEG. I'm going to use JPEG because the file sizes are smaller. Now let's save again and go to render animation. After it's done rendering, I'm going to show you how to compile the separate images into a video. After it has finished rendering, let's go to the video editing tab. Now go to frame 1, hover over the file location and press Ctrl C, and now Shift A, image sequence, and paste in the location minus the name. Hit enter and press A and enter. And now we have the animation in the timeline, in the sequencer. Now let's change the file format from JPEG to FFmpeg video, encoding to MPEG-4 and the output quality to high quality. Now go back to render and hit render animation. And now Blender is going to compile the separate images into a video. So that's it with the tutorial. I hope you liked it. Please let me know what I should do next, and I'll see you next time.